Yeah, so I've really been wanting to talk to you for a while. I really love what you teach on your channel. I really love what you boast about with your work because I do see that a lot of artists in this space don't have those skills. And I see that the artists who do have those skills are so exceptional at what they do, and they're so they can create such mind-boggling work because their ethics are so strong, their discipline is so strong, and how they've learned to create their art is very strong. I think you really advocate for that. But if you guys don't know who this is Edward, and he runs a channel speaking about game development and kind of like the best practices on certain categories of game development. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of have you on here. We're going to start with a couple questions. The main gist of this conversation is going to be the distinction between my 3D skills and your 2D skills, which is what I'm mostly excited about as well. So to start, I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to talk about your experience. I would also love to know where did that love for game development, when did you decide to really pursue that? How did that come about? And, how did it lead to now?
Yeah, so first of all, huge thank you for allowing me to come into the space and have this conversation with you. I'm really excited to answer your questions that you have, and I also have a couple of questions on my own that I want to ask you as well, right? So
Yeah.
first of all, my name is Edward. I run a channel called FastForwardMyGame, where I basically talk about how to make games as quickly as possible, specifically 90 days and under. And I think the funniest part about this is it's not about you have to like develop things quickly. It's actually about what are the things that are distracting you. And I would argue like 80% of the reason why we are in development hell or why there's so many games that never come out or why we just delay making games in general is because we're very, very distracted. And we currently live in a world where, social media is everywhere. You get hangouts everywhere. Like it's just like everything's super convoluted with so many distractions. So what I try to focus on is I try to inform the developer, hey, here are common distractions that show up in your day to day that you may not even recognize, and then kind of just assess what can you do to kind of delegate it, get rid of it, and by doing that, you end up having way more time to start being more productive with your development cycle. And these are things such as like what happens if you minimize your workout? What happens if you kind of like don't hang out every single day with your friends? What if you don't play video games for 8 hours a day? Like you can just absolutely cut things down. And then in addition to that, there's also a lot of game design lessons that are super important, but I feel like game design in a way it became kind of like subjective, right? Which it's true, right? Like how you approach a problem, there's a billion ways to solve it. But I do think there's a huge gap with how you can solve certain issues, right? So for example, if you're making a game and you want to make a mechanic with the game, you probably are thinking, oh, a mechanic is just like an input and an output, right? But there's actually way more ways to make a mechanic like way more interesting. And so my channel, in addition to talking about like production and lifestyle choices and such, we also go into like the objective part of game design. Like these are your goals and these are how you can hit it. And that's basically like what I just talk about. Currently, I'm uploading weekly. I say that as this week I didn't upload because there's just a bunch of client work going on, but that's what you can expect from my channel as a whole.
Yes. And I mean, I have actually adopted a lot of your philosophies. For instance, like having you mentioned before, like having a alarm system for waking up, but also for going to sleep. I've actually tried that out, and I have a sleep time of I put it at 10:10 p.m. Because I've done the math of like I if I go to sleep at that time and then I wake up at around 6 a.m. That's a full 8 hours, and I stayed up the time I could, and I've also gotten my sleep. It's really like changed how I do things. It changed the way I'm able to produce or like the speed I'm able to produce things, but also I can do things in a less like angsty manner. I can be like, okay, this is the
Awesome.
time. I'm ready to do it. I have it done, and I've been able to make a lot of progress just from that one little change in my schedule. So I really appreciate a lot of the work you've been doing. And again, outside of development with video games, I think this extends to all professions, all ways of life, all of how you do things. I'm not sure what softwares you use. I've seen that you make 2D games, but what are like the main softwares for game development that you have in mind that you stick with?
So this is gonna be super funny because I'm super well aware that like I saw your portfolio the other day, like how you do your 3D models and such, and like you're very talented. You have a lot of cool artwork, and that's something that I want to delve a little bit deeper to. But I say this because I use the most bare bones softwares ever. So for game development, Unity, right? Public, free,
Okay,
you can
Unity.
use it, right? But for art, it's literally three things. It's either, and hear me out, Canva, which is basically the software I used, the website rather, that I use to actually make presentations and such. I can get some art assets rolling there too. Um, Paint 3D because it's
Yes,
just the thing that
yes,
shows up on your computer, right? And
yes.
also for pixel art, I use this app called Piskel, which is basically like what if
Mhm.
A Sprite was simpler, but like it just has a couple of weird tools that I think is pretty useful. But those are quite literally the four tools that I use: Unity, Paint 3D, Canva, and Piskel. And the reason
I
why I
love it.
mentioned this, and thank you for that, but the funniest part about this is the reason why it's funny is because it's like, yeah, so these are bare bone software. These are things that you don't really like, take super advantage of. We have like
Mhm.
Photoshop, we have Unreal, we have all these other engines that can do like 20 times more impressible work. But I think the conversation that I actually want to have with you is you can do a lot with a little, right? So I think your work is
Mhm.
very, again, you're full of talent. You have really cool
Yeah.
textures, you have really cool models, you have this ability to kind of just conceptualize 3D work and then put it in your game or in whatever project you're working at, and it's really impressive to see.
Thank you.
Uh, so there's definitely like a lot of technical experience that you probably have from your softwares and such. In my case, I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, these are the tools available. We're gonna do Paint 3D. Let's see what we can do. You know what I mean? So that's why I chose
No,
those softwares.
that's amazing because I do that as well because when I think about like the tools that I use in 3D, I have stuck to only a couple of them. Blender being one of them. Mainly because it's free, it's open source, it has a lot of tools, it has a lot of tutorials, it has a lot. You can do, I think, pretty much anything with Blender. But outside of that, there's are certain things that can be done better outside of Blender. And one of like the free softwares that I use that like it's not a standard at all, but like it has everything I need, and it's so funny because it replaces Photoshop for me altogether, and it's called Ibis Paint X, and it's just
Okay.
like a drawing app, and it's like people draw like anime pictures and portraits, but it has just a couple of tools that are like perfect for game development. Like it has this tool that I can pull out the alpha out of any texture, and oh my god, is it a godsend because it's free. I could just pull it up whenever I need to, and I've stuck with that app for many years. And I feel like I've stuck to only free softwares over the years that work for me. That is just I have what I have with it, and I that's what I'm gonna build with it. So that's great that we both do that, even with the different types of work that we do. So I love that.
Absolutely. And I think there's an argument to be have here where it's like if you are skillful in something, it's like a snowball effect, right? It's like the more time you spend on a technical skill, the more better you're gonna just get better with those skills. And then it comes to the point where it's like, oh, because I'm so good, like, is it that I'm depending on the software, or is it that I'm depending on what I can do with the software? And that's where the skill point comes in. So yeah, I'm not super
It's
familiar
great.
with Paint X. I think I had maybe like a friend that used it one time, which is why it kind of rings a bell, but I can't tell you with a straight face. Like, oh yeah, I've seen this 100%. But
It's
I mean,
very
yeah, it sounds like the copying
I
alphas
think
is like a huge tool. For example, that's wow,
it's very interesting. I had it on my phone at first, and then I found out how good it was. I was like, the only problem was that it did have a bunch of ads and stuff, but
for
then
sure.
it's also great because you can just watch an ad and get rid of it for I think a good amount of time, and then you don't have to worry about ads. Or I think you can watch the ads. It unlocks the tools for you, like all the paid stuff. It unlocks it for you, and you don't have to worry about it. So yeah, it's like something I've just been using for many years because Photoshop is expensive. It's actually getting more expensive.
Yeah,
And it's like tools for artists I feel like should not be so expensive, especially when they're everyday things that are being used. It should definitely be cheaper because if it's cheaper, more artists will use it, especially if they're using it daily. I mean, why I don't get the discrepancy there, but outside of that, Blender and Unreal Engine are also free. I've just
yeah,
never thought to like pay for a piece of software to create any 3D model or anything, you know. So I see your philosophy there, and I love it. Um, so I guess on to the next question, which is going to be more. We're already kind of on it. The game development questions. So the first one is, as a 2D creator, what are the greatest advantages that you found working with 2D games? Because I know there are some. I just feel like I can't perceive them just yet. So what would
yeah,
you say?
absolutely. So in addition to 2D being probably the most accessible, it's software wise and just creating like it's ridiculously easy to create something in 2D versus 3D, right? 3D you need rigging, you need modeling, you need textures, you need how to.
Gosh.
There's just so many things in the 3D realm that to get to a point where things are like presentable, it's there's a huge entry barrier, right? 2D is like
Mm,
just paint, see what happens, right? And my argument to that is like, yeah, it's more accessible, but because it's more accessible, it tends to be faster. Now, keep in mind, quality is subjective, right? So that means like, yeah, high quality work is dependent on the skill of the artist. If they're really good at what they present, then they probably have something nice. If it's a little bit sloppy or there's some weird colors, then yeah, there's always going to be things that you can go ahead and adjust to, right? But
Sure. Yeah.
2D is just like one plane, right? No modeling, no extra skills that you have to work on. Just kind of put your idea on the image, on the plane, on the canvas, and just go ahead and edit it until you have something that is presentable. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest advantage: accessibility, speed, and I would also argue it's just faster iteration work. If you made a design, if you did a color, if you did something that you're like uncomfortable with and you want to change it, it doesn't take that many adjustments, right? Where 3D,
Yes.
again, there's a whole rabbit hole on what you need to do to just like
Yes.
change things, you know?
Yes. I can see that 1000%, especially when it comes to lighting and when it comes to making changes and iterating on that. Because as you know, working on like a single level for a game, there's thousands and thousands of iterations you're gonna make, whether you already know what it's gonna look like or not. Things are just gonna be changed, iterated. Plans are gonna change, as time goes on. So that's very cool that that's an advantage. You can just iterate, work, add it, and then done now. And then if you want changes, you could just do it quickly again. Whereas with 3D work, yes, definitely. You also experience with 3D work a lot of visual bugs that you have to then go fix. Whereas like a 2D world, you don't have to go and fix like lighting bugs because there's you're not going to run into that. The problems don't exist in that way. Um, so I would agree that sounds like a great advantage. I would say an advantage with 3D outside of all of the the extra dimension and like the lighting and stuff. Um, the only other advantage I would say 3D has is there's there's uh there's certain games you can do with 3D that you can't do with 2D, but I think there's certain games that you can't do with 3D that you can do with 2D, and you can achieve specific feelings with both, and they have their own advantages. So that's why I like having both options as like the thing you can do with games. Um, because I can refer to a couple 2D games that I can think back and say, holy crap, like that has really influenced like what I feel in terms of like the game Limbo. That game
Yes.
is all 2D, and it
And
has
black and
a
white too.
feeling.
So,
Yes, it's black and white, and that's another thing too. It taught me a lot about playing with shadows and lights and shapes. Um, and like that's a very influential game, and it's in 2D. So I think that there are so many advantages of 2D. I haven't explored yet. I would love to explore it in the future. So I love that. I love that as well.
I also
Um,
think, super briefly, that
sure.
um, what kind of hinges on what makes any type of art good is going to be the art style and the art direction. So, of course, there's going to be advantages to 2D and 3D, and I would argue that games that are more likely to be 3D or like 3D games in general have a higher probability of like selling more, being more marketable because there's just much more of a, I guess, like a space where you can just kind of like showcase the entire world, right? And this
Mhm.
is actually kind of funny. You just mentioned Limbo. It's kind of funny, but when you really think about it, Hollow Knight is another gorgeous 2D game,
Yes.
but technically it's actually a 3D game because they use like the little layer system to create the environments and
Oh.
such. So it is
Mm.
two. It's a 2.5D game basically, right? When
It's
you
like
like
a
really break it down.
pseudo 3D, pseudo 2D,
Yeah,
pseudo
so
2D. It's
3D
using
techniques,
3D.
exactly 3D techniques in a 2D plane, and it's gorgeous, right? But whether it was, hey, we are making a 2D game or a 3D game, it's like, what is the art style? What is the direction? What are the
Right.
shades? What are the character
Right.
designs, right? Like the art style as a whole is what really carries everything at the end of the day. So yeah, there's
Yes.
advantages to choosing 3D over 2D, for example, for sure.
Hmm.
But the bigger question is your game beautiful? That's the most important part.
Oh, I think that's to be asked alongside where how is this going to be presented? And another example, which is it's a current example, it's the new Avatar fighting game.
Yes,
Um, I think that game has hit a level of popularity because it's in a 2D format.
exactly,
They've tried many years in the past to create Avatar games that are either in 3D or like have a 2D style but are still in 3D,
correct.
and none of them have worked. They have all like have found some credence in their own space, but the art style at the end of the day is what deters people. But this time around, they have dedicated themselves to a fully 2D, copying the art style to the T, and it's bringing so much more success because that was the art style they should have chosen all along. Um, and I think that's a great example of how the choosing 3D versus 2D versus uh, any other kind of even like isometric view. That's a whole other
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I really do, as you say, I do think they have a lot of advantages, disadvantages. And the games that choose those advantages and disadvantages the most wisely are the ones that find the most success in their design and their art style. Um, so yeah, I find that very interesting.
Absolutely.
Now, what were the limitations that you found in 2D? Were there things that you might have wanted to achieve, but you found that because it's in this style in this format, under this medium, that you just couldn't achieve?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because this kind of comes down to like a systems question, like what type of game are you making, right? If you have a genre that, let's say it's a 3D platformer, but you're not making 3D art, then yeah, you're gonna have like a lot of clashes with how the game could work. Ideally, in that scenario, right, you could take a sprite, right, a 2D sprite, and then put it in a 3D world, and boom, you have a 2.5D type of game. So in my personal experience, I've had a game in particular that technically is supposed to be like all 3D, but it originally started as 2D. So then I was trying to make this transition of like, oh well, I just want to recycle the sprites and then put in the 3D world. Let's go ahead and make this 2.5D game. And I think the biggest clash, honestly, is the fundamentals, the basics, movement, basic combat. How can you make what you really want to do is like how do you make the game smooth and like less clunky, and sometimes 3D can kind of trick you into believing the game's more smoother than what it actually is, right? Where
Oh,
in sprite work, you have frame by frame animations, right? So let me quickly touch upon this actually, because this is
sure.
probably the main thing that a lot
I'd
of
love to know.
developers
Yeah.
should pay a little bit more attention to. When you're making a 2D game with sprite art as a whole, your frame rate is what determines like how smooth the actual game is, right? So if you have a walking cycle with like think about Mega Man where he has like three walking sprites. You're not gonna
Yeah.
care too much because okay, it's like a 2D thing. But if you took that exact same sprite and then put in the 3D world, the smoothness of the 3D world in comparison to like the whole 3 frames, like you're gonna feel that clunkiness. And yeah, you can make the
Yes.
controllers feel good, but there's this level of immersion that you're losing
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, frames versus smoothness, right? So
Yes.
I would also say that like the biggest limitations is quite literally that. Like if you can't make the player feel immersed, if you can't make the player feel like they're actually having like a good time controlling the player, regardless of whatever art style you make, you're gonna kind of like fumble your game design there, right? So I would say 2D games should focus more on mechanics that benefit them. So 2D platformers, 2D shooters, right? Whereas 3D games, right, things that are like third-person shooters or anything that has like a narrative context with it, right? Like you really want to make sure that you do like this handshake between this is my genre, this is the art style, and it is immersive. It makes sense, right? There's exceptions all the time, of course, but that's something
Sure.
that will help players kind of appreciate more what the game looks like, how it feels like, the appeal process of it all. And
Hmm.
it's a case by case thing too. You have to kind of just ask yourself, does this game make sense? So Limbo, right? Um, they had a lot of frames for walking, right? Like it's not 3 steps or 3 frames.
It
It's
was
actually
like
like
a very
super smooth.
interpolated.
Is exactly. So that interpolation benefits the player because now it feels smooth. It feels like I have more control. But imagine it was like a Mega Man thing where they had like 2 steps here and there. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, that doesn't feel nice.
Yes. I feel like even if you were to do that kind of frame rate, you would still have to rework the animations to still feel right. Like even if you kept that frame rate, you might have to retime how the animations look. You might even have to add more frames during certain parts of that animation just so it feels right. So even if you wanted that like sticky animation feeling, you'd still have to make many adjustments just so the art style and the immersion of that art style feels connected. I can totally see that being a clash, and I can also see that being a great success.
Yes.
You sought out to conquer that idea. Like, well, this is a problem. Let's see if I can actually make that work. Let's see if I can actually build something out of that. I can see that going both ways, being a challenge and a success. And I guess when we're speaking about the systems in 2D, like effects and character controls, how does that look? Because I know how it looks for me in Unreal Engine, and let me tell you, it is a mess sometimes, especially like getting controls to be remappable or to get very specific things adjustable in the settings menu. Like, how does that look for you when we're working in Unity? Do you have like a lot of pre-made stuff? Do you have to do that all by? Do you do that all by hand, by programming? How does that look?
This is super funny because I actually just started my next 90 day project. I'm actually on day 5 right now, and I just finished the movement system. And the thing is, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just recycle the movement system from the old games, this and that. But it's like, oh no, the context of this game means I need to pay way more attention to like how you move, right? Maybe I'm stuck on the whole like movement concept because I literally just like finished writing the program for that, so that's why
Mm,
all these examples are coming out of that. But the whole
mm,
point is like, yes, I really think that one of the most important things you have to deal with in making games is the game juice effect, right? How do you make the game feel a certain way? And yeah, that's going to be controls, that's going to be how you program it and such. But one visual cue that you're always going to rely on is it's like a series of game juice techniques, right? So it's what happens when your camera shakes when you take damage, what happens when your
mm,
screen tints red when you know, take damage, right? Particle
mm.
effects, that's huge, right? Particle effects can definitely be 3D, but they could also be 2D little bits. What if you're trying to do 2.5D,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Lighting is such a huge thing. Every time your character's animations, your character's designs, like all of these things have to mesh really well. And I think the interesting part about this is there's no wrong answer to it as long as it feels good. So, like I said, you really want to make sure that your character designs, your art style, and your genre are like handshaking each other, saying, "Yeah, this makes sense. This is immersive and such." But you
1000%.
have to
Mm,
prove it with the actual gameplay. So, like I said, maybe you have to make sure that walking is smooth and the world looks smooth, right? Well, what if, let's say, you're playing like a game where you're a robot, right? In a
mm,
mechanical game, you're probably gonna have like a lot of blocked out areas. Things are more not 8-bit, but like squarish. Think about Minecraft, right? In Minecraft, even though you're kind of like doing smooth movements, wouldn't it make sense if you moved a little bit more like a grid, right? Well, in Minecraft's
mm,
context,
yeah.
not really, because the game's
Mm.
like 3D. Like it's a
Right. It
weird thing of
wouldn't.
like it is 3D, so it is smooth, but it still has this choppy look to it. So that's why
Hmm.
like you have to really sit down and ask, okay, well, this is a chunky game. I have chunky graphics, but but it's because it's 3D, everything feels so smooth, right?
Hmm.
Imagine like wild thought experiment. Imagine if Minecraft was 2D, right? Would it still have
Mm.
like smooth platforming, or would it kind of be like grid based? Like you have to kind of
Oh,
imagine that.
yeah.
But what
Yeah.
supports
Yeah.
all of this is the systems you write. Minecraft is allowed to look smooth and feel smooth and such because literally the ambiance of the music is really soft and sweet. The combat
Hmm.
is very basic, but there's like depth to it. You have the
Hmm.
crafting system. Everything's kind of point and click. And remember, when you're pointing and clicking, you're always like moving your mouse around in like a smooth
Hmm.
way, right? So again, it's always going to be context. What are the audio cues? What are the game juice feelings that you're doing? What type of effects are you using, right? Like, could be 2D, could be 3D. It doesn't really matter which one it is. It's just, can you use that to support how your game feels? And that
Hmm.
support is what's going to excuse whatever art direction you end up choosing at the end.
Yes, I really love that philosophy because I think that's already how I build my own projects. Like I really look at how are all these elements meshing together, what is working, what is not, how, like you say, how do these systems shake hands and how do they smoothly integrate? And I found great success with like building my own systems with like enemy AI and character systems. I tend to find the most fun when it comes to building games. I tend to find the most fun in that part of it, building everything for the character, like all of the moves and like setting up the controls, setting up the combos, setting up the magic system. But all of that really matters when you're actually building it, when the experience is happening for the player. You have to really consider all of these elements. Um, and I don't know how other developers see that process because I think that's why we get a lot of divisive games. We have some games that are super slow, movie like, and I think just certain developers find that to work. They find that to shake hands much better than other genres. But then we have people in the other genres who are finding that all of these exciting, mechanics can really click together, and we have these games. So we have this incredible like mixed pot of like all these different cool games. I think that's what the most interesting element is to it all. So I guess well the last question is the tools that you use to put the game together, but I think we've already spoken about that because
Yeah, bare bones stuff.
there's a lot of different tools I'm sure that you use with Unity, and I just with Unreal Engine I'm always downloading a bunch of stuff.
For sure.
Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the more artistic questions because I do like your art style, but I'm not sure if that is your main goal with your games. Do you consider yourself a very artistic person or more business ended person?
This is super funny. Controversial opinion. I don't want to say I'm like super talented. I'm just using what's available, right? And this is where the skill part comes in, right? Like I do think yes, there are artists that are born and like they have all the talent in the world, and you're like, why are you so cracked? Like how can you create something so cool? You know what I mean? And I'm very privileged because I have like a lot of artist friends, and they're always like showing me their techniques, what they do, and I'm always kind of like on the sideline, like, yeah, guys, you're doing 10 out of that's amazing. Me, I'm gonna stick with some sprite art, I'm gonna do what I know, and nothing wrong with that, right? And of course, I would argue I got better over time because yeah, they taught me, oh, you should use color palettes effectively. Watch out for lighting. Watch out for tithering, which is like a little sprite thing that you can do. It's like, yeah, you're always gonna learn and everything, but I don't think the question should be more about like, is it like, do you think you're an artist, or it's like how much skills have you developed as your artist base as an artist, right?
So even though you're not artistically minded, you still utilize those skills. You still utilize those that foundation to then build your own work. That's very interesting. I've never really for a long time I've put myself in like a category of like creative or business. Around this year I've really started to mesh those identities together and understand that creativity can be used in ways that can help business and help that side of this industry, and I'm marrying these two kind of ideas together. So that's interesting that you just think of it as like these are rules that you use, these are kind of laws that you follow to make. That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's really
and
cool.
just to kind of touch upon that, because I'm gonna flip the question back to you. You
Okay.
have really cool modeling skills, right? But how was your modeling 5 years ago? Did you even model 5 years ago? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you could say
Yeah.
like, oh,
Oh,
like, again,
yeah.
you're very talented, but it's also like, how
Thank
did you
you.
get to that point? Did you naturally have it, or did you have to like learn the technical
It was
stuff and
yeah.
kind of like build and move on, right? And one
Mhm.
thing that I really want to comment on is it is extremely important to have an identity of self of like, oh, this is what I do, this is what I am, and everything. And never like doubt yourself, right? I'm not saying rub your ego or
Mhm.
anything, but like make sure that you're proud of your work,
Mhm.
that you're doing good, but never categorize your identity through boxes or categorize them, right? If you say, oh, well, I'm just an artist, oh, well, I'm just a business person, right? And yeah, you can have like a strong suit or a preference, right? Like maybe you happen to be more artistic than business, or maybe you happen to be more technical than design. That's totally fine. But for
Mhm.
you to close your mind and say, oh, let me just like focus on this one thing, which could be very advantageous in the context of a
Mhm.
team. But as an indie developer, you always kind of have to like wear all the hats at the same time. So
Yeah.
don't be ashamed or afraid to say, oh, yeah, like maybe I'm not like the strongest artist, but I can still defend myself. Oh, maybe I'm not the greatest programmer, but I know how to like use assets and everything. Oh, the
Mhm.
business part might be a little bit difficult, but I'm gonna take courses to like learn and everything. Like always excuse
Mhm.
yourself to say like I can do more, I can do this, I can keep on becoming a better version of my development self, as they say.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
literally just that. Just it's always gonna be skills. And yeah,
Mhm.
maybe there are other people that when you compare, of course, they're going to be more talented or more skillful than you. But you also have to remember they got there for a reason. They were able to
Mhm.
work hard on their own skills, whether they were born with that innate talent or not. It's always a path that they got to, and that doesn't mean that you cannot get to that path either. Um,
Yes. And
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
I was gonna say I definitely was in that space a couple years ago, kind of thinking like, that the business side of being an artist doesn't matter to me. I would actually tell myself that a couple years ago, but over time I have realized, like you say, that sticking to one side or the other, or sticking to like a specific identity, doesn't really breed success as in the long term future. That's where I've really begun to not hold on to that and be like, okay, what else can I learn? Like, yeah, sure, I know how to color a scene, but like, what else can I learn outside of that? Like, maybe I should learn how to actually sell that colored scene that I really like to make something. So
Absolutely.
I've definitely begun to open up myself and be like, this is if I'm gonna be an artist, I can also be other things too, and still be the artist. It's not like that's going away.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I totally see what you mean. I'm definitely outside of that, just leaving that space, thankfully.
And
And
that's
I
good.
hope yeah, and I hope other artists out there who are in that space right now can hear this conversation and start to really consider what's next for them, because in this world, even if you like to draw, even if you like to do anything, you have to understand how to survive. You have to understand how society works, and how can you insert yourself, how can you insert your skills, and how can you build upon those skills that you have if you're going to navigate this world as an artist, as somebody who is actually at a disadvantage in this world. An artistically minded person tends to be more taken advantage of. So if you're going to walk this world with that identity, then learn to carry other skills with you, learn to carry other parts of your identity that you may not have previously held before. So back
Absolutely.
to you what you were saying.
No, no,
I
you
cut you
you
off.
you hit the nail on the coffin here. It definitely makes sense that yeah, like you cannot just limit yourself. You just have to like overexpand and do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, to originally answer the question, am I artistic? That's also subjective too. You don't really know. Like if I evaluate myself, I can say, okay, yeah, maybe I am artistic. Maybe I have some
Mm,
skills here and there, this and that. But like,
mm,
the subjectivity of it all is it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because it's like,
mm,
cool, you can kind of like say, oh, I am this, I am that, and then you have to find a way to prove it, right? Or you could say, oh, I'm
mm,
not, but that doesn't mean I can't, meaning I can switch that
mm.
up. So just always stay open-minded on realizing that, yeah, like you can just develop whatever you want to develop. Obviously there has to be a path to that. You have to have like objectives and like milestones to
Sure.
actually get to your goals here, right? It's not
Mm,
like you can't say, oh, I am this, therefore I'll, just because I said I am, like, no, you have to like work for that as well, right?
mm,
But yeah, definitely, it's really that. Just like never lock yourself into one identity. Always try to learn. Always expand your skills. Do what you have to do. But take a little bit of pride, a little bit of proudness of like, hey, like I have the ability to learn. I have the ability to develip. Let's go ahead and
mhm.
utilize that to do great things. And like you said, once
Yes,
you
you
have something really cool, you can package it and let society
exactly,
purchase it if you wanted to.
exactly. And yes, and then you can then create more art and feel even more fulfilled in yourself as the identity you have chosen and feel more fulfilled in that. But that doesn't come without being more expanded as a person and understanding that like live as a person in this world, you can do so much more and there's so much more than like just your little world that we see. And if you want somebody to like see that world that you have to be more than what you might have originally thought you were before. You have to really uplift yourself into like a better place where you can say I can do anything. Yeah, I can do this. I love doing this and that, but I can do much more than that. And I'm telling myself this in a way because I have definitely limited myself for a while, but now I expanding the way I think has definitely led to even more possibilities. So anybody hearing this, I hope you're kind of if you're in that space, hopefully you come out of it, with a better mind and a better identity.
And to anyone hearing this, if you're currently marketing your game, do not be ashamed of marketing your game. There's so many developers that are like, oh, I think I'm over posting. Get it out there. You have no idea.
No,
Out of
yeah,
the 40 posts you have, I'm probably gonna bump into one. Like, just keep spamming. Like, just go for it. Like, don't
yep,
don't be ashamed.
yep.
Honestly.
Honestly, yeah, you have to really put yourself out there. And I know a lot of people say that, put yourself out there, but like, I mean, put yourself out there in a very in a way that you've never done before, especially in this day and age. Even I would say like even with how prevalent content is now, like there's obviously so much, but make more. Why not? Like, why not make even more? Especially if it's gonna help you in the end. Especially if you're a great artist, if you have a lot to share, you have a good mind, if you have a good way of speaking, or even a good personality that people will gravitate towards. Then why not push everything you can out there? So, and that's what I've been doing this year, like trying to just push out as much as I can because I have a
Absolutely.
lot of 3D projects going on all the time. So I realized why am I not talking about it, sharing it, sharing my process. So that's definitely good advice. I believe the next questions are going to be AI related.
Okay.
Now I don't know if you want to talk about AI.
I just context. I probably don't use it that much. In fact,
That's what I'm saying.
one
Yeah.
of my controversial things is actually stray away from it as much as I can. Uh,
Okay.
but there are certain things about it that I'm like, okay, like yeah, it could definitely be positive if you're like developing as a whole. Especially for like
Yeah.
rapid prototyping, for sure. Like the programming part can absolutely help. But in
Yes.
general, I mean, I don't know if you have a specific question you want to ask, you can go ahead and do that. But
Mm,
it's a very
I,
controversial thing, and I think I'm the type to tell you like if you want to use it, go for it. Absolutely, like there's a huge advantage to speeding up. As a programmer developer, there's a lot of cool things
yeah.
you can use to like verify and check. But for the generational part of it, as like can you generate art assets and such, that's the part where I know a lot of developers seem to be a little bit sensitive about it. I do think if you generate art from AI, it's actually useful to leave it as placeholders. That can definitely help you like capture the feeling of
Certainly.
something, and that's the whole part of prototyping and why we even use the polish phase of games later to kind of like understand what we have, kind of get a feel of what we're going for. But at the same time, I also recognize like yeah, it's just more effective to write art that is more cohesive with your art style, with your vision and such. And so that's where like that originality comes in. That's where supporting your artist comes in and such. And there's a lot of validity to that. But yeah, I guess like my stance is I personally would just like minimize the use of AI and such. There are probably other ways you can use it for improving your business, for your programming and such.
Hmm.
I am the first one to tell you it's been a whole year that I haven't touched it yet. I'm on day number 5
Mm.
of my day 90 project. I just used the code to verify. Like I just literally uploaded my script and said, hey, like, am I missing something? And it said, yeah, you're missing these gaps.
Mhm.
I'm like, I should probably rely on it more often, actually. You
Yeah.
know. But the generative part, cool, can help, can give
Mm.
you a lot of placeholders. I wouldn't lean onto that. And there's this giant sentiment about what's called AI slop, where it's like if you see art
Yeah.
that happens to use like an AI type of like artwork and everything, it's more likely to
Mm.
cause people to dislike it, even if the concept's really cool, right? So like you might have like
Mm.
maybe you put like an AI prompt of like, oh, generate this narrative that's like really interesting and it's actually a pretty cool story, but simply because you're using visuals that a lot of people dislike, then like you probably just want to like stray away from that so that you don't lose the value of like what you're actually working for.
I wouldn't say I'm for AI. I really only use it in a supplemental manner for like I would say like compiling like lists if I need a search and I need to like get like a compilation of the search or something. I probably use it for like simple stuff like that. And then for game development, I really don't try to use it. I don't really find a use case for it most of the time. A lot of the time I'm just writing the code myself or writing, making the materials, writing everything myself. So I don't want to use it too much in game development anyway. I don't I know that there's this like AI agents that you can like put onto your projects and it'll read and tell you tips and stuff. I mean, I haven't tried to use that. That seems somewhat interesting to me, but it's not something I feel like I couldn't do myself. Just dig through my own project. And outside of gaming, I think the AI is probably best used for scientific purposes, and I would say like for like astronomy. For if you didn't know, like I would say that the best use of AI right now is for animal communication where they study the algorithms of like whale sounds or dolphin sound, and they're finding right now that animals actually have a structured language that they communicate over, and it's a very intricate language, and they're doing things that they didn't know that they could do before, and that's being found out with the use of AI. So I would only advocate for AI in that regard, using it to like better the search of stars, for astronomy, or to better animal communication in that study. But for gaming, I myself try to stay away from it. The only other use I would find is for textures, because a lot of the time I can't like find the right texture. I need like a very specific picture of something and I can't find it. So that's the only other time I've used it is like I need a very specific seamless texture to like slap it onto a model. But outside of that, yeah, I wouldn't really advocate for it being used to create assets, to create a code base for you, because you're going to be working with that anyway on your own. I mean, you might as well learn it, build it yourself, have like your own knowledge on that system. Um, and that's where I would find like an issue with AI, like using it to build things that can be built yourself. And sure, if it could be built faster, that would be good, but still, I would use it more supplementally than primarily, in that manner. So yeah, that's mostly my thoughts on AI. I only hesitated to ask because I wasn't sure if you used it or not. But as you
No,
said, you
yeah,
don't
and
use it at
so
all.
just to clarify, right? Like I'm very neutral about it. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of advantages for using it. There's also like the conversation of like, are we generating art that kind of would like displease the player base, right? And I think the
Mm,
most interesting part about all of this is when you really break it down. I think the reason why it's more of an aggressive, hey, don't use for game developers in particular is because gamers happen to be like one of the most aggressive audience like members of all time, right? Like it's very
mm,
difficult to please a gamer in general because they're always like they have these expectations that are like ridiculously high, right? And so
yeah.
I've personally seen reviews of games that literally said, "Oh, I'm leaving a negative a bad review like on Steam for this game because the developer used AI." And I think the sad part is like the developer made a huge clarification saying like I used AI to like program part of the game, but like the actual art and
Mm,
everything was like all hand drawn. I didn't use anything. I hired artists and such.
mm,
And so there's this part where it's like, okay, do we have to be very careful about like the AI conversation because it's sensitive and a lot of developers are like a little
mm,
bit worried about these things, right? But also it's like,
mm,
do we take the stance of like, hey, do we just utilize it for this fact of like, hey, like we just need the help and everything? And I think the reason why I'm taking the old-fashioned approach, there's two reasons, but I think the only reason that I really want to discuss here is the main thing is like I'm probably again I'm gonna use the word here privileged because I've been developing for such a long time that I have what I call an asset pool. And if you watch the channel, you
mm.
absolutely know what this means. It's basically just a
Yes.
giant library of everything you've ever built. And quite literally, when it comes to
I have
prototyping,
one too.
that's super important, because now what you
Mhm,
quite literally do is you just drag and drop what you already created into your new project, and yeah, make your adjustments, refurbish, do what you got to do.
mhm,
Right now, like the game that I'm making, the whole main menu is completed, and that's literally because, oh yeah, I have a main menu script, I can just import it. Let's
yeah.
go ahead and clean it up, and we're set. And it's like, well, because I have that, and I don't really have the necessity of like building new systems that I, like if I need to build a new system, yeah, I'll build a new system, right? But if I look at my library and I have all these things, I can just import, move on. And in a very funny way, that's kind of like what AI does anyway, right? It generates codes so that you can use libraries to build your stuff.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
yeah, it's just that. It's like, I'm not, again, if you're a developer using AI, I have nothing against you. Go for it. Like, it's a huge
mhm,
tool. That's absolutely great. If you're like anti AI and you're like, oh, well, like, here's my reasons, I want to like respect the player base and the gamers, then yeah, more power to you. At the end of the day, your game is kind of like determined based on the market results, right?
mhm.
If you understand that using AI is going to detriment your ability to market your game because people don't like AI slop or that type of like AI art style, then yeah, you should probably stray away from that, because that will be a financially safe business advantage of like, hey, let me produce a product that's actually good, right? That people would actually like, right?
Mhm.
Maybe controversial. Maybe in 2 years, everyone suddenly likes AI art styles, and well, let's go ahead and start making games out of it. It's like, what does the
Mhm,
market want? How do we feed that? How do we like deal with it? Right now, the market is
mhm.
saying let's like stray away from AI artwork.
Yeah,
Okay, makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
let's go ahead and do that. But if that changes, then we also have to pay attention to that as well.
Yes, we also certainly have to pay attention to, as you said, the sentiment around AI because it is deeply influencing how people view everything, like especially anything visual. I mean, even the new Disney movie, the Pixar movie, people really don't like it, and a lot of it has to do with because some people are saying it looks like AI. A lot of people are comparing the main character to not having like being very predictable and very her like design itself does not scream anything original, and people are like likening it to like AI designs. So we have to pay attention to this.
Absolutely.
I think even right now on YouTube, channels are getting demonetized right now because their content isn't being considered authentic
That's
enough.
true. That's true. Absolutely.
It just goes to show just how strong the AI sentiment like this the whole idea of it has deeply changed our mind. Even my eyes. I can look at a painting now and sometimes my brain starts to AIify it and I'm like no, it's clearly real. So this is really dangerous in my eyes. Like I think it's almost akin to like the attention deficit that a lot of people face, where like maybe that's not as detrimental as the AI influence, but I would say it's very this has to be addressed, paid attention to, especially if you're going to be selling stuff, building stuff that are visual. So
Absolutely.
I see what you
Back in
mean.
the day, if you saw a short about like a grandma doing a flip, you'd be like, "Wow, that's impressive." Now it's like your AI
Yeah.
slop does not entertain me. Is the top comment. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, like nowadays everything is like
Mhm.
falsified. You gotta really watch out for
Yeah.
that. So I get it.
It's a very slippery slope out there right now. So that's a much more insight you had on AI than I anticipated, so that's great.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, we can go on to the last section
Yeah, for sure,
with which is the business questions, which I'm sure you're going to have a lot more insight on. I really would love to learn anything you have
for sure.
that you would love to teach me and anybody else listening. I would love to learn. Um, and the first one is what are some of the biggest hurdles that you see? Because I'm sure you've seen past launches, not just your own. What was the biggest hurdles that you've seen in launching a game?
So, a little bit of context that I want to provide just before answering this question is I run a consultation service where I help developers make their games within 90 days. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been genuinely one of the most interesting things ever, because what I do is I prepare a roadmap. So basically, the instructions on how to actually build your game from day one all the way to day 90. And before that happens, I interview the developer. We have a lot of conversations, and we do this design work process where we try to like say, okay, this is the idea, this is the brainstorming, here's the mechanics. Like, do we agree on this? Do we disagree? Like, we try to find every single thing that would ideally make our game really good, make an entire roadmap out of that, and then start the execution process of actually building. And the number one problem that just completely determines if a game's going to work or not is the appeal of it. And this is quite literally just saying, is your game marketable? And it's the $1 million question. It's as old as it's the old fashioned question that everyone always asks, like, is my game actually like interesting enough to go ahead and play? And I think it's really funny because you will be kind of shocked how, and this isn't to like discourage anyone at all, but like you'll be kind
Mm-hmm.
of shocked where you present your game idea, and if you have like a really objective view of it,
Mm.
maybe 9 out of 10 times, it's just not a good idea. And I'm
Oh.
not trying to say, oh, that's good or bad. I'm just saying like, hey, like I want to sit down and like have this argument with you to say like, let me tell you why it's a good idea, why it's not, what needs to be improved. And so
Mm.
one tool that I always do with all my clients is I use this thing called the appeal matrix, which is actually an entire video on the channel called how to make anything pop off and go crazy is the title of the video, or how to make anything interesting. And it's quite literally
Oh.
just a little like a survey of ask these questions to your game. Is your game interesting because it's novel? Is it interesting because it uses genres that haven't been seen before? Is it interesting because there's really cool characters? Is your game emulating an experience that is like very unusual, right? And what's interesting is as you see every single client answer these, my most successful clients had the strongest arguments. Oh, my game's good because it had all these things that
Oh.
I was like, oh yeah, this definitely makes sense, right? But my clients that ended up having the weakest results, or unfortunately terrible launches, they
Mm.
didn't have a strong argument on why their game is like that interesting. And I give them a little insight. I tell them like, hey, like your response is a little weak. We can work on it, or we can kind of reshift the idea. And they're the developer, they're the director. They end up choosing what they want to do at the end of the day. If they want to commit to 90 days, for sure. Sometimes they
Mm.
take more than 90 days. It depends on the context of what type of game
Oh.
they're building. But the whole
Mm.
point is like, it's really 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 important to nail appeal. Okay. Now, being said, right, like if
Mm.
the biggest hurdle is appeal, what are a couple of examples, right? So my first game, Dodge King, the one that I made in 90 days originally,
Yeah.
the idea was you're a knight fighting robots, right? So I thought those were like two interesting concepts that are completely different. So
Mm.
maybe that mix or that clash could be pretty interesting, right? And even though that idea exists, I think I didn't communicate it properly. So it didn't really sell that much. It was kind of bad. It's whatever. When I made the deluxe
Mm.
version, that's let me make the game again in 90 days, which I was able to do in
Mm.
89 days, by the way. And then,
Nice. Nice.
but the thing is, I shadow launched it. I just launched it. I never did an official
Out
announcement,
there.
whatever. It ended up selling like 100 copies silently. I was like, whoa, kind of crazy, like without any type of marketing.
Mm.
But then I was also like, yeah, I need to market. Of course, I had to market more. Like that's obviously
Mm.
like the number one mistake that I did. But
Mm.
the test that I was trying to go for is the idea interesting enough so that people could just buy it without any type of marketing? And I would argue no, like the game wasn't that interesting. Why? And if you go through the questions, okay, you have knights and robots, but what else? Oh, it's a roguelike
Oh.
that dodges. Well, Hades is a roguelike that you can dodge. Oh,
Right.
it has really cool characters. Fire Emblem has really cool characters, and they look like you can
Yeah,
make
you
any
could just
argument.
pull yeah, you can pull the comparison from anywhere because it doesn't have a strong enough identity in where it's at. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
So going back to the identity crisis of what your game is, you have to be firm enough to say this is my game, this is the idea behind it, and these are the answers that I have to all these type of questions. And again, it's like 10 questions that some of them are very generic, some of them are very specific on like, are you sure this is what you think about? But that's like a huge filter that kind of gives us a better idea of like, does this work, does this not? Now I will tell you, my most successful client, he ended up making his game in like 9 months, very
Yeah.
very very aggressively, but also passively. He was like on and off it, but in 9 months he ended up
Mm.
launching Rogue Jack 21. It is a blackjack game that's a roguelike, and it ended up
Okay.
selling 3,000 copies, made like $34,000. Like it was a success. I
That's
thought
not
we did
bad.
really
That's
good.
pretty good. That's
And
great.
so the reason why his game was super appealing was one, his art style was really interesting and really unique. It's a casino like, right? But it had like these little assets that were like, oh yeah, this looks like really nice to visually look at. Even though it was
Mm.
2D, it had some little 3D effects everywhere. So like, yeah, the presentation matters, right? But
Mm.
his reasoning was, oh, blackjack plus roguelike just hasn't been done yet, and that was like an underexplored area. So one
Mm.
question is, has this idea been underexplored? If so, why do you think players would want this, right? And we just kind of went back and forth explaining like, okay, yeah, it's underused, but like, what would upgrades look like? What would the routing system look like? Like, there's a lot of things that we just
Yeah.
keep building, and then we realize, okay, yeah,
Mm.
maybe this is gonna be a good idea. He launches, sells a lot of copies, is financially set, and now he's actually working on his second game, a game about flipping
Mm.
cards, which is literally an incremental game about blackjack stuff. It's really interesting.
Sounds
Unfortunately,
really.
unfortunately very addicting. I play
Oh
tested it for a
no.
little bit, and I'm like, oh, I'm here for a while. Like that's a
Uh-oh.
problem.
Oh
so
no.
so it's fun. But
Mm.
we ask those questions like, okay, have we seen an incremental blackjack game before? No. Oh, okay, this is underutilized. What's
Mm.
so appealing about it? Oh, what are the upgrades looking like? And we go back and forth, right? Um, And
Very, very cool.
I have right now, I'm dealing with a client who's currently in development, but he has some clips of his prototype, and one of his shorts ended up having 24 million views. So
Oh,
so when the client came up to me and he said, "Hey, this is the game I'm working on. How do we finish it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me take a look." And I'm looking at his content. I'm like,
mm,
"Brother, you have like possibly something really viral." Now
mm,
he's in development and he already has a lot of things, so I think it's fine to talk about it briefly. But
of course,
he's
but
making a Spider-Man speedrunner. So literally, imagine no, literally imagine you're like
that sounds
think about Attack on Titan, Spider-Man, like a
uh,
swinging grappling type of game. That it's a
mm,
speedrunner, right? There's a game very similar to this, Cyberhook. You probably saw it before, where
Cyberhook. That does sound familiar.
grappling
Yes.
game in a cyber place, whatever, and it's that. So it's
Mm.
very similar to that, but the background or the aesthetics is backrooms. So it's what if Spider-Man was in the backrooms and he's like as fast as Sonic? It's like whoa, that's that's kind of fire, you know.
That's
So
actually crazy.
so then
Yeah, I love
if
that.
that idea is already like interesting and like whoa, I can imagine a lot of cool things, that concept has the ability to have more virality, more marketability, more viability to actually building it. So when I told this client like,
Oh,
hey, I think 100% we should go for it, this and that, he already has like a bunch of the game done, so like it's gonna come out super soon. We're aiming for, I told him let's go for December. We're probably gonna do January, February. But the whole point is like
mm,
the
mm.
idea is so strong on it, and it's very simple too. We're not talking about 5 billion
Super.
systems. It's just just Spider-Man
It
on
are
drugs. Like
yes. This idea, like, it already carries a harmony with it. Like, oh my God, like this crazy Spider-Man character, like in this environment, like how I feel like that catches your attention very quickly. So just hearing it, very, very cool
and
concept.
that's the point. If the idea is already like, oh, that's great, then you have something marketable. If you don't, if I had to say, yeah, my game is a game about like you're a farmer and you're making plants, right? And you collect the plants and you get more farmers. It's like, okay, oh, my game is backroom Spider-Man on crack. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you
People
have
just
to,
love that. Yeah,
yeah, like that's
yeah.
the whole point. So lot of business challenges, but it's like the biggest hurdle is appeal. It's always going to appeal no matter what,
That's
because
what
it's appeal. It always
I
comes down to
think.
appeal.
I think that's what my current game project, that's the problem. I've already been told this before, but I think this is truly the last hurdle to get over with this game because I think everything is there. The gameplay is there, the graphics are there, the all of it's there. Like the actual game, all of the settings, all of the mechanics, the programming, everything's there. But when people play it, they love it. They can keep going, keep playing, but they will not like catch on to what's going on. They're like, well, I'm playing as this, mask running around with a sword, but like I don't really know what else. Like I'm not latching on to anything else. It's cool, everything's cool, but I'm not. But now I see it's that I haven't like injected the identity of the game into it yet. There's nothing to latch on outside yet. So that's what I need to
And
keep going
to your
on.
point, and this is really important. You said it perfectly. I have the gameplay, I have the graphics, I have everything. Cool. Any game can do that. That's the thing. That your
Mm,
job as a
mm,
developer is to deliver that expectation. So let me.
mm.
So okay, the example I want to give you, and like I do not tolerate Undertale slander. I'm genuinely an Undertale. I love Undertale, but
Mm,
objectively, right? Like the character designs, the sprites, kind of like the beginning of it's a beautiful game, sure, but like there's a lot of the game that you can kind of look at and say this
yeah,
is weird. Maybe
yeah.
I don't want slander. Maybe a little ugly, right? Like of course like whatever.
Uh,
Okay. But the point is like you
mm,
see that and you're like who would want to play this game? Like this is so weird. Why was Undertale so popular, right? Because the premise. What's the premise? Save monsters instead of killing them. Wait, you can spare
mm,
your enemy? Wait a minute, that's kind of crazy. And keep in mind, like now we're seeing kind of like one of my games that I was building is sparing your enemy, whatever. Like it's heavily based off Undertale, right? So I
mm,
gotta thank Mr. Fox for that, right? But the whole point is like that was that was one an underutilized idea, but then two the
mm.
premise itself was so genius and so like so out there that's like sparing an enemy that hasn't been done in a video game before. Let me try that. What would that look
Yeah,
like? And
yeah.
then now you have the gameplay. Now excuse me, you have the context, you have the systems, you have the narrative, you have all these cool things that yeah, we're talking about how art style is important. We're talking about how everything artistically and visually needs to be like, handshaking the systems and such. But
Mm.
if the premise is so good, it can kind of excuse bad art. It can kind of excuse all these little things. It's like, yeah,
Wait,
I'm
yes.
telling you, the Spider-Man grappling hook game looks really cool because it's back rooms and this and that. What if
Mm,
it wasn't anything. What if there wasn't any background? Well, guess what? The prototype didn't even have the backrooms area stuff yet. It's literally just blocked out.
It's
And
just
that
that.
blocked out was so popular that's like, oh, it still worked ugly. So the idea is, can your game be ugly, still be fun, and still be like cool with the premise? If your game is appealing ugly, imagine your game appealing when it's beautiful. Then yeah, you have something super fire. So yeah,
Yes, I oh my God, I see what you mean. Yes, I can refer to many games. I mean, Mario 64 is a very fun game. Graphically, it's
yep,
it's probably the most primitive thing you could find out there. So you're totally on the mark there because it really comes down to the experience. Even when visuals don't fully hit, they can still hit if they're done in a charming way, even if they're not the best looking.
bingo.
So and I love when I find a new game and I'm playing it and I'm like, oh yeah, I see it, I feel it. When you know how when you start a game for the first time, you move the character
Yeah,
around, you run
yep,
around in the menus, you suddenly feel like I feel that feeling and it's right there. I
yep.
love it. I love this game. I love it. And it's really hard to achieve that. It takes so much effort to like really like objectively sit yourself down as you play the game, whether it's your game, a project, and to understand what you're trying to build and then get that successfully conglomerated into an experience for the player. It is very hard to do that. It
I got
depends also.
so.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I got two. I'll hold my thoughts. You can continue, but I have two tips on exactly how to improve any game idea.
I just think it's a very tough balance to find. It's a very tough threshold to actually get yourself to. It's a high ceiling for a lot of developers, even like AAA developers. Sometimes like getting the feeling of the game is just not always there with certain games. And I'm not gonna call any games out because some games
Yeah,
they may not feel right to me. They feel great to someone else. But I want to hear what you were gonna
yeah.
say though.
So what's interesting is you just said it's very difficult to objectively playtest your own game and kind of figure out if it's good or not, this and that. So the number one advice is always playtest and let other people playtest your game. As in, like, yes, it's so easy to say, oh, like, this is my game idea, and not that you have an ego to it or that you're trying to be overprotective about it. It's just you're gonna have a blind spot that you're just, as the developer, you're simply just not gonna see. I like to think that developers have a tendency to be very tunnel vision with how they look at their projects, and it's very difficult to be a horizon-based viewer when you're just looking at one part of the game, right? So the reason why playtesting is super important is one, so that you can get the feedback and everything, but you start to expose your horizon on, oh, I've been so focused on movement, this and that, but players actually care more about the character design. Oh, I've been focused so much on narrative, but the players actually want more upgrades. It's like these are the things that you have to like really pay attention to, and the best way to get that is by getting feedback from other players. So very obvious advice, but like I genuinely undervalued it forever. I was like, oh, playtesting, yeah, I'll leave it to the end. Playtesting has to be the most important thing because that's what's going to guide you to actually making systems and mechanics that actually feel good. So again, if you
Yeah.
have an appealing idea, cool, but how do you actually execute the idea to the point where it feels good? Well, you need your playtesters to kind of reiterate and tell you, oh, work on this, do that. That's the part that matters the most. And the second part is, and this is a hack. This is like a little secret that I use every now and then. If you're building a game that happens to be very similar, or it has like a lot of mechanics that are similar to another game that you're aware about, you can always you live in a free world. Nobody's stopping you from emailing that developer saying, hey, do you have any advice or do you want to playtest my game? For context, it has a lot of Mega Man Battle Network like inspirations, right? So there's a grid system, there's some shooting, and so what happens is I'm basically building a lot of features that are revolving around the Battle Network series. There's a developer that I was in contact in who he made, maybe you know him, he's a super amazing person. His name is Thomas Moon King. He's the developer
Thomas.
of One Step from Eden, and he was able to, basically he made like, what if Battle Network was a roguelike? That's what he basically made. Super amazing game, super commercially successful, literally one of the best games you can get on the genre, like super cool. And one day I just emailed him. I'm like, hey, I'm building a game that's like Battle Network like. Could you like playtest it? And he playtested it. And I'm like, whoa. And so
What?
not only did he playtest it, but he gave me the feedback. And so he said, hey, like this is really good, but if I were you, I'd work on these juice effects. The movement had this like circular issue. Your character design's really good, but like work on. And so for that developer to give me that feedback, that's really good because like, okay, objectively, I know what to do to make it better, but I'm literally getting advice from someone who actually already did it. And so, yeah, playtest feedback is important, but feedback from developers that are already have the results that you want, that's going to be like infinitely better because they can actually tell you verbatim, oh, this is what you actually need to fix, rather than, oh, I feel
I
good, but
love
maybe you
that.
should work on this.
That is that is incredible. Yes. Um, And I feel like I've been approached before, like, oh, like somebody needed help with their project, and I was because of my experience with Unreal. A lot of the time, like people will be like, oh, and I've already run into the problem before, and I've solved it before, and because they've reached out to me, I've become colleagues with people just because they've asked for help, and I've been able to help them. It really does help to get outside feedback because you're even just in your daily life, like you're in this little bubble, you're kind of only within the experiences your brain has. So if you're only working off of that foundation, you're not, you don't always get as far as you want. So, and I mean, even when like the current game I'm working on now, I did like a public speaking and I had like the play testing and everything. And one person suggested like, oh, the way the sword moves, maybe you should have it like do it this way. And I was like, I never really thought about it. Like, should I do it? So I had really considered it when I had gotten home, and I ended up turning it into a feature that you can turn on and off because I liked my original option, but the option that the person suggested was also great. So I was like, okay, I'll just have it both. Why not have both? And I was able to program it, and now you can just go into the settings, switch between those options, and it's a whole different. It completely changes the gameplay too because each option has like its own stipulations that come with it that are better for some situations and worse for others. It now it's all up to the player. I don't even have to make that decision. Now it's all up to whoever finds the option and wants the decision.
Absolutely,
So it
that's the
really
horizon-based thinking, and you only get that through playtesting. Like, absolutely, yeah,
only. Yeah, absolutely. Like I was even approached one time with the idea of having like a lock-on system,
yeah,
but I was like, I don't know. We were looking at it. I was letting the person play. I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you think? But then the person behind him was like, I don't think it does. I don't think it needs one. But then the person was like, I don't know. Maybe it does. And then we decided not to because it didn't seem like it would work well. But that conversation only happened because of outside sources, outside feedback,
absolutely,
outside brains that are looking at my brain and saying this could be changed, this could be better. It's a great thing when you think about it, like how you're collaborating with other people. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to make that change. So like, don't don't make that suggestion. But other times you're like, whoa, I didn't realize this just opened up something for me. So
yeah.
it's a great feeling.
Yeah. There's this professional part where yeah, you have to kind of there's a word for it, kill your darlings, where it's like, oh, I have an attachment where I like this feature, but if my players are like, hey, like this is what we
Yeah.
want, well, I gotta
Hmm.
get what the player wants, you know. So
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
happens, it
And
happens, right? And maybe yeah, maybe there's times where you have to make the call and say, no, actually, we're gonna keep it, like totally fine, right? But like, all
yeah,
just
yeah.
the feedback is like the most important part. You will never know
Yep.
what's good until you actually get it out there and let people know if like they can tell you if
Exactly.
it's good or not.
Like I folded on creating a remappable system
Yeah,
with the buttons because I was like, oh, it's just gonna take so long and it's hard. I don't even know where to start. But somebody was like, no, change it. I was like, but what
I
about like,
won't play your game until you change it. That's what when the threat comes in, you're like, you know what, I got the pressure. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it
yeah,
happens.
yeah, no, I had the pressure, but it actually ended up being really good.
Yeah,
I did have a lot of troubles getting started at first. I was like, I don't know how Unreal Engine does it. I don't because they had just moved to a new system, so I was like, I don't know how to do that. But I just hunkered down, was like, let me just see how I can get it done. And now it's like the best remappable menu I've ever made. Like it looks really good. I've all the little features I wanted in there, I was able to get in there. Before I was like, oh, I don't know if I could have it like ignore certain buttons when you want to remap it. But now I have it like so much better than it would have been had I just ignored the person's suggestions. So it's great. It's great. It's very important to take others' feedback, especially on like an artistic project like a video game.
absolutely.
I think the only other question I did want to know from your perspective was if you think working in a studio right now is more favorable than trying to self-publish and like kind of run your own business with your own game. What are your thoughts on that?
So from experience, fun fact, I actually used to work at a game studio for a year and a half.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that was super cool. That's probably where I learned the most amount of skills possible because you're always tasked to do like a bunch of programming work. But then you kind of realize like, okay, so this is what needs to be programmed, but I got to make a system that supports art to come in, and I have to like do this in a deadline, and like that's really where I would tell you like, yeah, in a studio, you're gonna work professionally, you're gonna expand your skills like crazy, you're gonna have a lot of pressure and everything, and it's really a good basis to just like learn. Okay. At the same time, you're gonna quickly find out that in a studio, you're not necessarily fully in control of how you work, right? And it's controversial because the dream or the idea is like, oh yeah, I want to work on my own video game, I want to do whatever I want, this and that, and like, yeah, like that's very appealing, and I think that would be a strong argument to why a lot of developers do indie game dev in the first place. Oh, let me just build my dream project and see how it goes, right? But
Mm,
I think the funniest part about all this is that you'll quickly learn that your dream project probably would work, right? Or maybe it doesn't. But
mm,
the results of that really stem down to, again, the appeal factor, the marketing, how many people like it, how many players will actually play it, purchase it, do all these things.
mm.
And so the main difference between, hey, in a studio I don't have agency over my work because I get assignments and I have to deal with it, versus, oh, I'm my own developer and I get to choose what assignments I have, it's kind of this it's this illusion of choice of like, you really don't have that. You have some agency as an indie for sure, because like you get to choose your idea, where you want to go, the scope. Like you're more of a project manager as an indie, versus in a studio you're just kind of like stuck with whatever you're assigned with and you're expected to do that. That's what you're getting paid for. But the illusion of choice is you're always going to make things that tailor to the client, whether that's your players, whether that's someone that you're working for. It's always do the work that is delivered to, please the
Yeah.
person that you're trying to get, so that you can get your financial compensation at the end of the day. So
Mm,
I would just genuinely say, like, if you are someone that's looking for a job, just you want to like practice and polish your skills and such, a game studio could be a very cool place to gain experience. I do not recommend game studios for stability at all. I got super
mm,
privileged because I was able to leave the studio for another job that I was just personally interested in. But a year
mm,
and a half later, that studio ended up laying off like 80% of the people that were working there, which is absolutely insane. And I'm
mm.
glad I did the jump before I did, because I didn't get caught up in the layoffs. But I'm
Yeah, yeah.
it kind of worries me because everyone, by the context, everyone that went through the layoff, they're all doing fine. Like
Okay,
nobody
good.
messed up. Like we're all good, right? But imagine, right? Like you just get blind spotted, you lose a job. This not like that's a huge problem in general. And I see this probably every week at this point, where you have a AAA studio that's just laying off either their entire staff or everything. It's a really unstable job, and for job
Mm,
stability, I'm the first one to tell you I would rather pick a boring job, something that you can just go ahead and do your 9 to 5 and use that to just fuel your game dev stuff on the side. Be your own
mm.
self starter, work on your own business and such. Which at the same time, right? To be sufficient at your business or your projects or anything requires professional ethics. This is why it's so important to treat your work professionally. If you have deadlines, follow the deadlines. If you have
Yeah.
an assignment that you have to do for a certain day, you have to get that done. If you
Mm,
got to do something and you don't know the skills, study up the skills. Like your work will always be rewarded based off of how you treat it, right? If you are just doing it as a hobbyist and everything, then yeah, more power to you, because you don't have anything that's like pressuring you. You can just have fun. You can do
yeah.
what you got
You
to
could
do.
just free flow, but
But
and
yeah,
I know what you're saying because when it comes to like supporting yourself, you have to treat yourself as a like you have to run your life a little bit like a business. You have to put a structure around yourself because you have no one else around you to do it. And that's what jobs typically are for. They have that
yeah,
structure, you go in and you follow that structure. But I see what you mean. To have your own thing going, you have to do the same thing that businesses do. You have to have a structure, you have to have a routine. Goals need to be met and set, or set and met. um, it's a very important thing. You treat your life as like a system to be run that is fueled by you. Versus I can see being at a studio. I it's crazy because I've always wanted to work in a studio. Like I spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how I can do that. Even like last year, I applied to a bunch of studios, got no replies, but but they definitely I definitely could tell that even if I do find myself in the studio where I'm doing this type of work that I love, I'm probably going to end up in another system that I don't love. Even if I'm like partially in control of it, even if I'm at like a higher position, it's still going to be that system. So
studios are
I
just
have.
another fancy way to say 9 to 5. It's literally just, oh, can you do a
Mm,
9 to 5 where we're using your skills more effectively? It's all work at the end of the day. So
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like the point that I'm trying to get to
Yeah.
is like, absolutely, work is work, no matter what. Whether it's a boring job, whether it's a fun job, you're always going to do a clock in, clock out. And the dream, the idea is like, oh, what if I can just like manage my own stuff and everything? Well, yeah, you could run your
Mhm.
own studio, get your own finances. To be super consistent in both a game studio and indie is like already one of the most
It's
demanding things
already.
out there. There's so many things to do, and like I understand why it's such a hard thing to do. I get it. but there's also ways
Yeah.
that you can work towards that, right?
Yeah.
And just to briefly tag upon something that you just mentioned here is the publishing part, right? Like, yeah, you can become an indie developer, you can do everything on your own and manage your own stuff, and
Mm.
that's fine. Publishers give you the advantage of saying, hey, like, let me take a certain amount of money that I'll get from you guys first, let's say like 50K or something. Then I'll launch my game, and then you guys can have the first $200,000 that the game makes, and then from that point and onwards, I make enough.
Mm.
These deals, they range in how much they give you, how much they deal with, the scope, the time, the pressure, everything. And
Mm.
I'm not super experienced with publishers in general. This is just like the basic, like, hey, good to knows. You just also want to make sure that if you do work with a publisher, that they're very recognizable, that they have the ability to not basically legally scam you, because there are a lot of publishers that tend to be very
Yes.
predatory towards developers. And in general, any publisher that has like a good track record is just something good to have. Of course, that also means you're going to be very
Mm.
competitive. You have to have like a really cool, appealing game idea.
Yep.
But I always say, like, if you have the means where you have a normal daytime job and you can just deal with your finances there, you could take the publishing route to get a big mass of money, but then you have like these higher expectations and deadlines and pressures
Mm.
that
You
could
have.
actually push you towards a very stable part of your life. At the same time, it could
Mm.
be a coin flip and you just kind of mess up and you're in trouble. My personal recommendation, or what I would like to do, or what I'm currently working at,
Mm.
is take the normal job, do your game dev stuff on the side, self-publish
Mm.
your game. If it goes well, congrats, you can start transitioning. If it doesn't, just keep iterating. I always say,
Good. Mm.
the more games you make, the better games come out. It's like you're always going to get more skillful the more you push. So it's just
Yeah.
it's just an exercise of go to work, do your side project, and remember, have fun. You're living life, right? Like, have your friends, have
Mm.
your relationships, have your diet,
Yeah.
have your
Yeah.
workants. Like, not everything's about being a robot. Like,
Go.
you can be a
Yeah.
human and
Yeah.
you,
Go
you
do.
have friends
Go
and
live
such.
your life like that.
So
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, I guess I'm giving that feeling of like hunker down every day, but I think the part of it though, I think, is making space for that. That's part of the balance though. You're gonna have this time to work hard, but it's also important to know when you just gotta relax, when you just gotta literally relax your physical muscles and say, all right, let me breathe for a minute. Like, I'm here to live life. Yes, we have to follow structures, we have to kind of do things to take care of ourselves, but also find those moments to like breathe. And like, I like to go to the park every weekend. I just go
nice.
where I live. There's this beautiful lake, and I just go and sit to breathe, not think about a computer or pixels or games, anything. Just relax, breathe, and it's very important. Like, it's a full on reset for me when I go. So um, definitely find that balance as well in yourself, because that's what we're here for. We're living life every day, and every day shouldn't be the same thing of working hard. It should be a mix of all experiences, all things. And in the context of like working 9 to 5, I found that it's a little bit more of a hindrance to me um than it is of like a stable thing, because it can be very stable, but I find like I often don't have the time to do the things I want. So I'm kind of finding that balance right now, where I'm trying to have maybe a work week where like I just have a day or two extra to work on whatever I want to work
Yep.
on. And then the rest is just going out to see friends and family, doing whatever I'm doing, exercising, going out, going to the gym, and all that. But it comes with a lot of like conscious management of your life, and part of that management is giving yourself a time to relax and giving yourself that time to work really hard. And I mean, it's just how it is. It's just how you got to live your life.
Yeah.
Um,
One more just little piece of thing that I just
that's
want to
really,
catch
yeah.
super quickly.
I'm good.
The reason why I am able to make games quickly, why I'm able to help my clients the way that I do, is because we do this thing, the whole roadmap process of like following the instructions and such. That's your best guideline to actually like getting to the point where you can actually like finish your game, right? But the guideline is very difficult to develop because you're basically creating a game without iterating, right? Iteration is extremely important. We just talked about, yeah, you need feedback. You want to make sure that
Yeah,
everything's executed as well,
sure.
and that there's absolutely all the validity behind that. The thing is,
Mhm.
when you know what to do next, you have a lower amount of friction on actually working on the next thing. So I noticed that a lot of developers that I work with, most of their approaches are iteration based, as in, oh, I'm gonna make this feature. Let me see how it is. Oh, let me test this out. Okay, let me add this. Like it's just adding, and
Mhm.
that works. I mean, there's a lot of games that came out doing that exact approach, but that's also how you stay in the development cycle forever. And
Yeah.
so one solution that not only makes your game development process faster, but also allows you to kind of like say, you know what, I can do 1 hour of work today, is just knowing what to do next. if you're at a position where, yeah, you come back home from work, you're super taxed, you did a giant report, a presentation, your boss was probably telling you some funny things in lunch, you're like, man, I just want to go home, and
Mhm.
you know, just turn on the TV, play some video games, whatever. Like, valid,
Mhm.
super valid, by the way. But the problem is, your ability to start your game engine and say, what I got to do today, let me see. Like, that friction comes from the fact that you probably just don't know what you have to do next. And so
Oh my gosh,
the
yes.
roadmap is the reason why it's like, okay, yeah, you're tired. Yeah, you probably are like, you probably don't even want to make a game today, but 1 hour. We're just asking 1 hour. You can do these 3 systems. Do you think you can do that? Go ahead. And then before you know it, that's, yeah, sometimes it's 90 days, right? That ideally, right? But sometimes it
Mhm.
could be 4 months, five. But the point is, by you doing that 1 hour consistently of this is next, this is next, checkbox
Mhm.
here, check mark here. Oh, I did this part. Oh, I'm
Amazing.
gonna send the playtest. That progress snowballs into the fact that you can make a build that can be commercially launched
Yes.
way more
Uh,
quickly than you
I'm
think.
I'm doing that exact thing right now with,
Awesome.
it's not a video game,
Yeah,
but it's for video games. I can show you after this,
absolutely.
but um I'm doing that exact process. I have an exact goal list of what I'm trying to do, and then I have like I'm kind of have like a checklist of like every time I finish, I add it on. And I'm doing so good with it right now that I'm already over halfway done with the timeline that I have set. I think I've given myself like a month and a half to do this project.
Nice.
But because I've been so hunkered down on like I know exactly what assets I'm gonna create, I know how the lighting's gonna look, I know like what elements I'm gonna have. I have it already written out, and then every day I just go to it. Every time I literally get distracted or like I start working on it and I start like doing more than what I'm like, oh, I'm working on the sunlight instead of like the material. I just go right back to the list, and it just reminds me, the floor. I was supposed to work on the floor, and following this process like really closely has I've been able to build this project so quickly. I'll show you after this call. It's very
Absolutely.
cool.
And super briefly,
Um,
just like a 9 to 5, you never overwork in your 9 to 5. Why would you overwork, right? Like, you
yeah,
do the
no,
bare minimum, right? But what is the bare minimum? The requirements. What are the requirements? The list of things you have to do. So treat your
exactly.
game like a requirement list. Oh, I got to do
Hmm.
this and that, and that way
Hmm.
you build way
No,
quickly. But yeah,
it's a great way. I like to tell people I love lists. Like if
yeah,
you want me to do like a bunch of things, just give me a list. I will gladly keep myself occupied by the list. Because it really just keeps you guided. It keeps you focused on what you want to do to reach the progression levels. And it's let me tell you, it works when you eat like you say, like when you eat well, when you keep like your space around you organized, when you kind of just learn to build this resilience in your head. And I really think it's a great space to be when you consciously hunker down on it and be like, okay, I want to achieve these things. How do I do this? Let's get it all situated on paper and then execute it. But I think we've gotten every category. I've learned already so much from you. And you've actually just affirmed a lot of what I've been doing lately, like trying to really be more successful with finishing my projects, getting them out there, and just doing that over and over and over, finding more success with it, doing it in a more efficient way, more in a more stable way. Um, so I really appreciate you and your channel with that, and I hope anyone else listening can breed some sort of respect for this man and what he has been able to teach me and whoever else your channel has reached. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? I'm open ears.
Brandon, it's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for having me here, for asking these wonderful questions, for again giving me the space and allowing me to kind of share my thoughts, and also for answering the questions
Mhm.
that I also asked you here, because there were a lot of interesting
Yes,
insights regarding like how you approach your 3D and such. So being
thank
said,
you.
like,
Yes.
yeah, definitely it was a great time, and yeah,